The NFL stands for not for long.
Set Sharga and Armstead. Roll out. Walker still running out. Looks to the left. Wide open. Thompson touchdown. Colin Thompson with the touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards of
What a catch off the bobble. Colin Thompson scoops it up.
Lofting corner, the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. The first NFL touch for Colin Thompson is a score.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Colin Thompson Show. We are back to our weekly episode where I join 97.3 ESPN. And we are with the great Mike Gill, friend of Not For Long Media's, personal friend as well. It's great to join Mike on a weekly basis and talk Eagles. Everything we do here at the Colin Thompson Show at Not For Long Media is brought to you by the original Fudge Kitchen, shipping fudge and sweet treats across the country, saltwater taffies, all the wonderful, fresh, delicious, handmade, handcrafted fudge. They have it down there at the Fudge Kitchens if you're down the shore. And if you can't get down the shore, they ship it across the country. Okay, Eagles. This is our Eagles segment weekly. Lots to talk about. 34-31 win over the Commanders. They have the Rams coming up on the road next Sunday, the 4:05 start. Then they have another Sunday the following week, 4:25 start before their next home game against the Dolphins, which will be an interesting game. Two powers in the NFL going at it. Miami had a tough loss to the Bills after breaking records against the Broncos. So lots to talk about on the NFL slate, and Mike and I are going to get into it here in about 30 seconds. But before I do, I think there's some interesting stat lines to bring up from the game. Obviously, Jalen Hurts had an absolute massive game, and it was really good to see him get back on track. To me, he was always on track. I think the outside world would say he wasn't on track, but the guy looks cool, calm, and collected. He's taking what the defense gives him. The receivers and him are getting in sync. Teams are taking away the run game more now than ever with him. So I think Jalen is poised to continue to be on this trajectory where he could be an MVP this season. Mike Gill Show, here it comes.
Gambler. Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
All right, we are live on a Tuesday, the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. It is our crossover segment with Colin Thompson from the Colin Thompson Show, Not For Long Media. He joins us now. We got a lot of Eagles to look back on. He looked at the game tape, took a look at it, and we're going to question him now. We're going to put him under the microscope. What did he see in that Eagles win, 34-31 overtime against the Washington Commanders? There he is, former NFL tight end, well, current NFL tight end. We hope soon Colin Thompson is back on the show. The CT Show. What's up, buddy?
Mike, thanks for having me. Yes, NFL free agent. I know I'm always sandboning and eating sandwiches, and it looks like I'm just gallivanting, but folks, social media is not reality. Shocker, I know, and I do work out for a living and train multiple times a day. Just, popped another sandbone. So all's good in the hood, Mike, and all's good in the hood for the Eagles too. I think, I'm always optimistic on here, but I watch the tape. I just tell me what the tape tells me, and I think there's a few things.
Let's take a look at what the tape told you. You can give us a couple nuggets that you have. We'll hold that for a second. But here's some of the top things that I think people have been asking. So let's get your thoughts on what you saw. Number one, Eagles 27 carries for 104 yards, 3.9 yards a carry. They had dominated on the ground. Were you looking at them and wondering why they didn't have more success or why they didn't stick or try to commit more to the run?
That's a great question. I think there's a fine line there, right? Like, we have these really all-pro receiving core and tight end. Like, we're going to feature them in the pass game too. So they have so many weapons, right? So who are we going to feature? The game's on the line. You're going to Brown, or you're going to Smith, or you're going to Goddard. These big plays down the stretch, somebody has to make them. And I think this too. And one of my takeaways was, you invest in defensive linemen, you invest in offensive linemen. Shocker. But you could see how Washington's built with that defensive line and the impact it had on the run game, impact it had on pass protection, impact it had on Jalen's comfort. So to answer that question, Mike, I think they always have a healthy balance of both. I think people get obsessed with the run game because in the past they were just blowing teams out of the water with it, but it's a little harder. It's a little tougher sledding against Washington now. They're built for that.
So, yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of people would look at the Eagles' run game the first couple of weeks, and you're right. I mean, you have so many options. You're not going to run the ball 49 times every single week. But I guess the question was when they got the lead late in the game, 8 minutes left. I'm like, all right, just run this game out. And it seemed like, oh, no, we're going to go to the air. So maybe that's the times where you were saying, man, can't they impose their will against this team and kind of run this game out? Or is that not something we should think can happen every week? It happened against Tampa. They had a 9-minute drive. They ran the ball down their throats. It didn't happen last week. But did you think they could have maybe leaned on the run more late in the game?
Well, they were doing some things with the safeties in Washington, right? Trying to load up the box. So we talked about last week, these 7-8-man boxes where they're saying, hey, we're daring you to throw the football, right? It's like the old thing with Ben Simmons, like, hey, we're just going to play off. We're going to play off defense and force Ben to shoot the three. We saw it all the time. Instead, they're saying, listen, we're going to make Jalen, Smith. We're going to make all these guys beat us in the pass game. And we're going to make Jalen Hurts throw it over our heads here. And we're going to hope that they don't connect. Well, the Eagles connected. And I think that's why they stuck with it, because they were loading the box up and they're saying, hey, you beat me with your arm. We're not going to let you shoot three. We're not going to let you do your bread and butter, feed the ball to Shaq, pick and rolls. We're going to, instead of pound the pavement per se, we're going to make you shoot threes, a lower percentage shot. And that lower percentage shot was deep shots down the field. And I think the Eagles did a great job with it. People say it's Jalen Hurts' best game this year, and he connected at a really high clip.
Yeah, I was going to say, all right, it was his best game. So let's not take that away from him. He was 25 of 37, 319, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did get sacked 3 times, but it doesn't feel like, while it's his best game and the number said, man, he had a great game, did it feel like the Jalen Hurts that we saw in 2022?
I thought he looked uncomfortable. The one thing I noticed was he was taking off very quickly. There were several times and several examples where I thought he was getting out of the pocket laterally instead of pushing vertically, where he could really, really, really press the pocket, have the edges be set by these 2 all-pro tackles, trust his interior offensive line, and step up and either dump it to a running back, throw the ball in someone's feet to check it down if they're covered instead of intentional grounding, or take a shot down the field. The one time he stepped up, he had a huge scramble right up the middle. But when he was running side to side, these defenses in the NFL, in particular Washington, how good and athletic they are on the edge, they're going to chase him down. So I thought that was my one takeaway, like the 4 bullet points. Jalen did not look comfortable, and he left the pocket sooner than he has in the past.
Yeah. I don't know about you. Everybody, I was watching the game with my father and his buddy. We're sitting outside. There was a 3rd down, designed quarterback power, it looked like. He took it, put it under his arm, followed left side, got about 11 yards. First down, was early in the game. 3 of us all at the same time said, where has that been all year? It's a play that we saw a lot last year. Do you think they have limited that for any particular reason? Do you think so in other words, you've been in NFL practices, you've been in NFL meetings. Do coaches say, you got to get down, you got to get down, you got to get down? Do they pound it so much in your head that he seems like when there's nothing there, he slides? He doesn't want to, that one run, I think we've only seen it once or twice all year. So kind of bring us into the NFL world of what happens in those scenarios. Because did you notice what we all saw?
There's 2 worlds that Jalen's trying to make happy. A, the front office, coaching staff, Eagles fans. Get down, Jalen. We can't afford to lose you. Then there's the Jalen world, the competitor, the physical freak who works his ass off in the weight room. That's so fast, so smart, so tough, so talented. But I don't want to miss these games anymore down the stretch. That ate him alive when he had that shoulder late in the year last year. And, inch to the left, inch to the right, and all of a sudden he's out for the season. They're not in the Super Bowl. So I think there's a little bit of that too, Mike. Like, I want to be available. I want to be healthy. I want to do these things. And there's a fine line. Fans want players to be Supermen all the time. But look what Josh Allen's doing in Buffalo. It's kind of like you can't do that all the time.
Are they telling Brian Johnson no design runs or limited limited amount of
That's an
design.
organizational decision.
That's
Like
what I'm
Anthony,
saying. So if
that
they
Anthony
told Brian
Richardson,
Johnson only if it's absolutely necessary, do you pull that type of play out of the playbook?
yes. To answer your question, point blank period, yes. There's communication from the GM to the head coach to the coordinators to the offensive line coach that say, hey, what are our, they call them, gotta have it runs. What are our gotta have it runs? We need this. We need this drive. We need this first down. What are we going to do? We saw in the Super Bowl. Jalen was running around in the Super Bowl. They're running gap scheme runs with him. Because
Well, we saw it a lot. We saw it the whole year last year. I mean, what
Correct.
made him special last year was when they needed a third down, they had that card in their back pocket of 3rd and 6, quarterback power, quarterback draw, RPO. He keeps it himself, and he's not trying to get yards and sliding. He's trying to get yards, high stepping, making moves. Not happening this year.
No, it's not happening. But I will say this. The offensive coordinator for the Birds was really settling in. That's another thing I noticed, Mike. They are taking what the defenses are giving them now more than ever. You could see it clearly. The one shallow cross they hit across the middle to, I think it was Smith, and that was a screen to the right. That was supposed to be a big-time screen to the right that was going to set up DeAndre Swift for a catch and carry and probably 30 yards, but he just took the shallow route because they brought pressure and he was open. Again, a lot of young quarterbacks say, oh, there's a screen. I got to throw this screen over here. Well, when you run screen plays, the other routes aren't dead. If a guy's open, you stick him. So that shows Jalen's maturity level. That really stood out to me. A little sloppy play, a little bit, a couple of false starts. I talked about it on our show with you yesterday, Mike, can someone ask me, and I want to ask John McMullen this, the great John McMullen, why are they going on silent cadence at home? I don't know if anybody's talked about that yet. I don't know if anybody's asked the coaching staff that yet, but they're going at silent cadence at home. And I noticed it only because Dallas Goedert is a very good blocking tight end in this league. He can do everything. He's one of the few that can do everything. He was laid off the ball and got stapled into the backfield, and the play got blown up. And I'm like, that's not like Dallas. Well, why is it like Dallas? Because he can't jump the snap count. And it's not like it's that loud at the link when you're on offense. So they're setting into place with the play calling, but there's still some things they're working through. And I think that's fine, especially being 4-0. I mean, it is what it is.
Oh, yeah. Listen, Hurts 25 of 37, 319. I thought he made some unbelievable throws. The touchdown pass to A.J. Brown, I think, was not talked about enough. I mean, Brown makes a move. The corner closes, but he still throws it in the spot where only Brown can get it. Then he makes a curious play, though. He's rolling out, and Brown, and he's kind of schoolyarding it. Go. And he just throws one up there, and Brown is with, like, 2 defenders. Like, so those decisions were more curious, but he, on the flip side, he made some unbelievable throws. So you're seeing the flashes of the player he is, and then you're having some curious decisions that we didn't see a lot of last year.
Yeah, that's some great points, Mike. And I think when you run the football, when you're a mobile quarterback, we do it with LCMR. We always talk about it. The coaching staff says, how can we get our quarterback in a groove here? Is there any quarterback runs, 1 or 2 of them? Is there a rollout to get him some confidence, get his feet moving, get sweating a little bit? Like the first hit of the game usually gets a kid or a player or even a professional. I play with guys that just need that first pop. They want to get lit up a little bit, and then they're ready to go, and they set in. So I think there's a little bit of that there, less and less the older Jalen gets. But there was a play there. It was cover 2, and it was down the left-hand side. And he threw a honey hole shot, which is between the corner and the safety. And Jalen did a great job getting outside the corner because the corners in cover 2 do not allow you to get outside of them. That's the rule. Force them back inside because there's safety help. Well, Jalen got outside of them and threw a rope. Hurts threw a rope to Jalen Brown. So they're on the same page. That's coaching too, right? Like, hey, they're going to give you cover 2 here. The whole shot's available. So just impressive stuff. I think it's all coming together at the right time. Washington's a better team than people think. I get it. It's the Commanders.
I agree with that. And A.J. Brown said it yesterday, Colin. You don't want to be playing your best football now. Do you feel like after the first 4 games now that they take another step as they go to L.A.?
I do. I think they continue to do what they do at a high level. Listen, there's a team full of leaders and champions in that room, right? They lost last year, great. But that team has got tons of experience. Young players that are fresh, old players that are wise. I think they go to the Rams and listen, it's going to be an Eagles home game. These away games are turning into Eagles home game. It's like Pittsburgh.
Oh, it's going to be packed out there, right?
It's like Dallas or Green Bay. We played all these teams in Charlotte, and man, it was a zoo for the other teams. So I think so. I was just going through a little bit before with my show before I jumped on yours. Washington last week, obviously, and then the Rams and then the Jets. So they have an interesting stretch here nonetheless, and then Miami. So
yeah,
another key part of the season, Washington is a better football team than people think. They're built, in my opinion, the right way. Tons of skill guys, physical offensive line, physical defensive line. So I like the quarterback too.
Free agent tight end Colin Thompson. Let's look at the tape on the defense. First off, Eric Bieniemy's game plan. I thought they had a really good game plan, and it's only a good game plan if you execute it. And I thought Sam Howell did a really good job of executing the game plan, 1, and 2. The area that I thought would be the mismatch, the Eagles' interior defensive line against the Washington interior offensive line. Washington held up.
They did. They really did. And I think they got 2 great backs too, right? And they feature them, and they believe in the run game there. Like people are, saying the Eagles all late in the game didn't believe in the run game. Eagles are a run-first football team. Don't anybody fool you. They also can pass. That's the pleasure of having all these different pieces to do so. But you're right. They stuck to the run in Washington. It allowed, the Washington offensive line to set their pads very early in the game, which is extremely critical. And then they have a lot of different pieces. I love Curtis Samuel. I played with him in Carolina, a stud out of Ohio State. He's a wide receiver. He's also a running back. You saw him on the jet sweep for the touchdown, walking into the end zone. That's a really tough play to guard for the guy like Curtis. And I like Sam Howell. I mean, the guy's tough. The guy's gritty. He plays fast. He looks under control. And that's an Eagles D-line that they're telling him all week, you got to be careful. You got to be careful scrambling. You got to be careful. So to answer your question, Mike, I like the defensive game plan this week. Of course, I'm a Sean Desai guy. I've said it here before. He's a friend of mine, but nonetheless, he's super talented. I see the Eagles showing pressure, dropping out. The Eagles bringing max pressure with a single high safety. They're dropping a bunch of guys into coverage, like showing different looks. You don't know what they're doing. Sometimes when I'm watching games, I'm like, here comes that pressure again, because I've been watching it a lot. But they'll show the same defense, the same look to the same formation, and drop something completely new out of it. So they're developing. That's a group that's going to get better as well. So I think fans nowadays, Mike, just get a little unrealistic of what's going on. Team's 4-0, and they're trending in the right direction.
Well, I thought one interesting thing, and I want to get 2 defensive thoughts. Let's start with this one. They did get 5 sacks. 3 of them came from Nick Morrow. A lot of delayed, disguised blitzes. We didn't see Morrow right off the bat. He kind of looked like he was in coverage and then delayed his way through. Because usually if you say the Eagles got 5-6 sacks, they dominated with the defensive line. But I still think the defensive line had an impact in those sacks.
Huge, Mike. And to piggyback off your argument, if you watch those pressures, they're trying to get Morrow one-on-one with the running back in protection. So if the running back stay in protection, then Morrow, who have him in man-to-man, will trigger and blitz. Well, if he can sneak his way through because the D-line's causing havoc and penetrating, he's unblocked. You saw a couple of times that he just smoked Hal, and Hal had nowhere to go. Morrow had one of the best games. But I think that's synonymous to the entire Eagles team, Mike. Like some weeks, it's going to be the offensive line. Some weeks, it's going to be the wideouts. Some weeks, Jalen's going to run for 100 yards. Some weeks, Morrow is going to have more sacks than Hassan Reddick and Sweat combined.
Yeah.
Like, that's how that team's built, and that's how good teams are. So let's not get that twisted. All these dynasties over the years, very few are like Kansas City, where it's like Chris Jones, Mahomes, and Kelsey, and then a bunch of guys that are really good players. In my opinion, the best teams, and again, Kansas City's a really good team. The best teams have a wealth of talent, and the Eagles have it.
We'll leave with this. Obviously, you're playing Sam Howell, good, but still very unproven. You've played against Mac Jones. Jury's out. You haven't played all-pro, top-level quarterbacks yet. I guess you could throw Cousins in there, and he had a big game. Are you concerned with the secondary of the Philadelphia Eagles? Is that an area where you're still saying, I'm trying to figure out what they're doing. I need to see some more.
I think they both have great corners. I think they have safeties that are becoming fan favorites. I think a lot of really good things about their corners too. Mike, I don't see, you don't sit down every week and say, man, this team's got a major hole here. I think people look for it a little bit. I think this is a passing league now. You're going to get gashed in the passing game now more than ever. It's going to happen. It's only going to get worse, folks. I feel bad for the defensive guys. You can't touch anybody now. It's a flag. So, no, I'm not overly concerned. And they're going to face an all-pro quarterback this week in L.A. So
yeah, you got Stafford this week. Obviously, the Jets are struggling at that position, although I thought he looked way better.
look good.
Then you got Tua. That could be a huge problem. Washington again, and then Dak, who has really ripped you. And then you go through a gauntlet of Mahomes, Allen, San Francisco, Dak again. And I thought Geno, he got hurt last night, but he's playing pretty well.
Yeah, I like what Wilson did in the game. I want him to do well with the Jets. I think everybody kind of does. It's like, man, this is a really tough situation he's got to come into. That Jets team's loaded. It was a good game. We'll see, Mike. Lots to look forward to. I'll say this: Jake Elliott, people, he's one of the. I think he'll end up passing David Akers as one of the best, if not the best, kicker in Eagles history. This guy has been money for a very long time. At the link, even back to my Temple versus Memphis days, 2014, he hit a 60-yard game winner against them. So I'm like, man, this guy's a stud. 2 years later, he's with the Eagles, like we talked about from Cincinnati, like you brought up on our show. So don't take for granted this snapper, holder, punter, kicker situation because it pays dividends. And all these games in the NFL, most of them are one-score games. So keep that in mind, folks. I like the way the team's trending. The team is trending, and I like how the OC and DC are settling into their roles.
All right. He's Colin Thompson, the Colin Thompson Show, Not For Long Media. You can check out all of their social media platforms for more from Not For Long Media and free agent tight end Colin Thompson, breaking down the film every week right here on the Sports Bash. All right, CT, I'll see you soon, buddy.
Go Phils, baby. Red October.
It starts tonight, and you can hear Red October right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage at 7:30, first pitch, 8:00.
All right, the great Mike Gill. Thanks for having me on, my friend. An awesome radio show down there in South Jersey. Download 97.3 ESPN app if you're liking what you're hearing. I love Mike. Doesn't take any callers. He gets a little text board going. He has some fun. He has a bunch of guests on that know all about football. I think I try to know a little bit about it, I guess. People that know more than me, but I'm blessed to go on Mike's show. He's a great friend. He's an ally of ours here at Not For Long Media. Check Mike Gill out at Mike Gill Show. A lot of Eagles talk. It's been fun talking about them. It gives me another reason to dive in a little bit more and keep my football brain sharp, watching the film on them and some of the other teams I've highlighted that I got to keep sharp on if and when I signed with a team coming up. Still training my ass off, still ready to go. I'm going to give this thing a shot for a couple more years. I'm not giving up now. I know I have gas in the tank and played my best football all the way through training camp, really best of my career. So why would I stop now? All is good. Shout out to our friends at Wealth Advisory Services, wealthadvisoryservices.com. Shout out to GEEK going to a game. A lot of playoff games going on right now. Punch in promo code Colin Thompson. And listen, shout out to the Fudge Kitchen and shout out to everyone here at Not For Long Media. It's a huge week for us across our network with the MLB playoffs, NFL season. There's a lot going on. So appreciate everyone's support. Check out all our shows at Not For Long Media. And big thanks to Mike Gill for having me on the show.